Let's get to the UFC Beijing card. So I did not watch this live. I was one of the smart people. I watched it in less than an hour on Fight Pass, just sort of going through it. But let's talk about the main event. Bit of a shocker. Bit of a well, okay. I will say, if you looked at Francis Ngannou's last two performances, it was a little bit surprising to see the way the fight went down. But Francis Ngannou getting the first round finish over Curtis Blaydes, 45 seconds, even less than the first time they fought. Francis Ngannou is back in business. He gets the first round finish over Curtis Blaydes. And this Francis Ngannou needed this. I mean, a third straight loss. Who knows what would have happened? The UFC clearly wasn't happy with him with that performance against Derek Lewis at UFC 226. So he gets the first round finish over Ngannou. And poor Curtis Blaydes. I mean, I was just thinking about this today. You know, Blaydes and Alexander Volkov, both, you know, coming off huge wins earlier this year. Volkov over Verdum and then Blaydes over Overeem. And now both of them will not be fighting for a title next because, well, they weren't anyways because of Brock Lesnar, but now they have to both go back to the drawing board, and Ngannou gets an impressive win here. This looked like the old Ngannou, clearly has his confidence back. It looked like he kind of caught Curtis on the back of the head, which, you know, is one of those things that can happen. Curtis went down immediately. Some people saying that it was an early stoppage. Early stoppage. I don't think that was the case. I thought that it was a fair stoppage here, and Ngannou earning the win here. And this really opens things up again because, you know, you have some fresh matchups here. You know, Ngannou potentially could fight for the title again if need be. You know, if Lesnar can't fight or there's something that happens, he could be a backup. Some people suggested Stipe. Absolutely not. I don't want to see that rematch with him and Stipe because Stipe just beat him earlier this year. That doesn't need to happen. Fresh matchups are what I'm looking at here for Ngannou, who, you know, it helps the division in a way because he was a guy that was entertaining. He was getting these first round finishes. So for him to go out there and finish Blaydes was good. And for Blaydes, you got to feel for him, man. I think if Brock Lesnar doesn't show up at, you know, the UFC card in the summer at UFC 226, Blaydes is probably fighting Cormier. And not only does that not happen, he loses this fight against Ngannou, but just disappointing performance for Blaydes. Made a mistake. He ends up getting caught with a shot here. And the thing is, we didn't really learn much about Ngannou, you know, because, of course, the last two fights, the fight against Stipe, the fight against Derek Lewis, I mean, you know, there were issues in those fights. You know, his cardio, his, you know, there was a lot of things we didn't know because this fight ended so quickly. Clearly, we know one thing. Ngannou still has his knockout power, still can finish anyone in that division in the first round, including Curtis Blaydes, who, you know, it's only his second loss. He's got 2 losses now, both to Francis Ngannou. So this is a big win for Francis Ngannou, puts him right back in the driver's seat. And for Blaydes, it is back to the drawing board. Now, this was a surprise, I think, to some, and the betting, you know, public agreed because he was an underdog and he ended up coming through here, and that is Alistair Overeem getting the first round finish over Sergey Pavlovich. Overeem, again, back in the driver's seat as well, just like Ngannou. He gets a finish here. And this was sort of the old Overeem that we saw in this matchup. You know, we've seen Overeem have some underwhelming performances in the past, but, you know, 2 straight losses to Ngannou and Blaydes. Avoids 3 straight losses, you know, because he hasn't lost 3 straight since 2007 back in Pride, actually. So he avoids that there. Overeem looked good in this fight. You know, it should be noted, as you guys know, if you watch the interview here on Fightful leading up to this card with Curtis Blaydes, that Alistair Overeem was training at Elevation Fight Team in Colorado. So I think that certainly helped in this fight. Overeem seemed to have his confidence back, and Pavlovich loses for the first time in his career. He was 12-0 heading into the fight. He's now 12-1. So back to the drawing board here. I saw some people saying this was bad matchmaking. I disagree. You know, I think if Pavlovich had a win, it was a good win over a former UFC champion. And, you know, he's a young guy, 25 years old. You know, he'll be back to the drawing board. Clearly, the competition he was fighting outside the UFC, not up to par with what is happening in the UFC. And Overeem certainly proved that, getting the finish here. So Overeem back in the driver's seat as well. But, I mean, realistically, how many more fights does Overeem have here? 38 years old. You got to wonder how much gas is left in the tank for him at this point. You know, a little bit... you know, at the very least, there's some interesting matchups here. You know, would you do the rematch against him and Ngannou? I mean, that fight isn't even a year old. I don't know if I want to see that. You know, we're doomed suspended. I mean, who knows what's going to happen as far as what is next for Overeem. That's something I have to sort of look at the rankings and see sort of who is available. You know, you've got Alexei Oleinik, who I think said wanted Ngannou next. Oleinik could fight Overeem as well. I mean, there's some options there as far as some of the top guys in the division. But yeah, good win for Overeem. Nice to see him get back in the win column. He's a marketable guy, and the UFC has certainly needed that because Pavlovich, I mean, he's sort of an unknown at this point, so he'll have to go back to the drawing board there. Yadong Song getting the win over Vince Morales. Morales, a newcomer, lost on Contender Series, ended up picking up a win or 2 on the regional scene and is back in the driver's seat and loses in this short notice opportunity. Song looked good in this one, getting the victory, improves to 14-4. I thought this was a good showing from Song, and nothing surprising here. What's that? 6 straight fights right now, win streak. Song will probably get up, another step up in competition after this one. But it was a good night for the fighters from China here tonight. And sticking with that, Jingling Li getting a 3rd round finish over David Zawada. Li, this guy's always entertaining. I always like watching this guy fight, always getting the finish in most cases. And he certainly does that here, improves to 16-5. Good win here for the Leech. That's 2 straight now. What is it? 5 of his last, 6 of his last 7, actually. The only loss in between there, Jake Matthews at UFC 221 earlier this year. I'd like to see Lee fight, North America, do some more fights there, but it was a good win for him here. How about Alex Morono? I love this fight. Going out there, getting a decision over Keenan Song. Morono, certainly put it all out there. He was bloodied up and bruised after the fight was over. Just an entertaining matchup in this one. And I was really impressed with the way he was able to bounce back after that loss to Jordan Mean. And Morono, if you saw here on Fightful when we did the pre-fight interview, was training at Fortis MMA. I think that definitely paid off. He looked good in this one. So, Morono back in the driver's seat, climbs to 15-5. And for Song, he drops to 14-5 on his career. And Song right now has his 2-fight win streak snapped. Morono, certainly a lot of upside here. I curious to see who he matches up against next, but only 28 years old. So, we'll see sort of what is in store for Alex Morono. Rashad Coulter moves down to 205. Now, I know he missed weight, but he ended up getting the decision here. Takes out Yazong Hu, who falls to 3-2. Coulter getting his, I guess this is his 2nd win in the UFC, is it not? Or is it his 1st one? No, his 1st one, actually. That's right. He didn't get a win in the UFC. So Rashad Coulter getting his 1st UFC victory here, snaps a 3-fight losing streak. It's not often we see guys get brought back after a 3-fight skid, and Coulter took advantage of that. The Daywalker getting the win. Like the post-fight speech, a lot of class there. I thought that was really good. So Coulter, realistically, 36 years old, probably not a huge ceiling for him in the light heavyweight division, but, entertaining guy, did what he had to do to get the win. So that was nice to see Coulter get in the win column. Now we got to talk about Zhang here on the prelims, making quick work of Jessica Aguilar. It's funny. I saw a lot of people on the, sort of leading into this fight saying, oh, I can't believe Aguilar's the underdog, but Aguilar, man, she is, not look like the fighter we thought she would in the UFC. Some bad luck in there, though, too, because, she had to fight Claudia Gaday in her debut. She had some injuries in there. She'd been away for a while, coming off that win over Jodie Escobar. But Zhang, this is a prospect to watch out for. She looked great in this one. 29 years old, gets the first-round armbar in this one. And Aguilar got really beat up in this fight. For a one-round fight, it was pretty brutal to see that happen. So, Zhang looking good, though. A lot of potential there. Again, I told you it was a good night for China as well. Pingyan Liu getting the split decision win over Martin Day. I don't think Martin Day actually lost this fight. I kind of feel bad for him. He falls to 9-3. I think he could have given that one to Day as well, but Liu gets the win there. I realize I'm butchering some of these names, but it's going to happen here. Yan gets the win over Kondo. Again, Yan looks like pretty solid prospect as well. 10-1 record. Kondo, what can you say? Falls to 6-2 here. This is just another setback for her. Probably, I don't know if she might get one more in the UFC. She's, 1-2 now in the promotion. So we'll see if they give her another one. But Yan looking very impressive in that matchup. Kevin Holland, I love this fight against John Phillips. Phillips really durable. I think Holland, if you looked at this fight on paper, he was a sizable favorite heading into the matchup. I think some people expected maybe an early finish, but Phillips hung in there, man. He looked good. Holland going for a lot of submission attempts on this one and a lot of finish opportunities, and that didn't happen. It took him all the way to the 3rd round, and Holland gets the submission win in this one. Holland getting his first UFC victory, and good for him because you know what? Not a great performance on Contender Series. Gets that short notice fight against Thiago Santos where it was a bit of a mismatch, or it certainly was a mismatch, but Holland made a fight out of it, and he gets his first UFC win here. The thing I loved about this fight, though, with Kevin Holland was, the talking in the cage. I don't know if you guys could hear him. Definitely talking some crap, and then after the fight, I'd love to figure out what he said, but I know Phillips is an SBG guy. So, Holland mentioned something about proper 12. I like this kid. I think he's great. I think that he's definitely a breath of fresh air in the middleweight division. Sorry, I'm stumbling my words a little bit here, a little bit tired, I guess. But Kevin Holland looked great in this one. Don't know who you match him up against next, but he's a guy they got to build in that division. Good personality, good fight style. I'm very impressed with Kevin Holland. And how about Louis Smolka opening up the card here, getting a 2nd round submission in the fight over the 22-year-old Majeri. I believe that's how you say it. Smolka, snapping. I shouldn't say snapping. He gets his 4th straight win. course, he had 4 straight losses in the UFC, got cut last year, was brought back in less than a year, and now he gets his 4th straight win at bantamweight. Smolka looked great, very emotional after the fight. Anyone who's sort of been following his story, battling some alcohol addiction, was able to overcome that, moved his entire family from Hawaii to California. Looks like it's paying off, him training at Team Oyama, getting the win, 2nd round finish, like I said, over, pretty game prospect here. And, I don't know what's next for him, but good to see Smolka back in the UFC. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Louis Smolka was, headlining a UFC card and defeating Paddy Holohan. I remember that on the Ireland card. It looked like there was a lot of potential there. And then, he ran into some bad luck fighting some tough opponents, Brandon Moreno, Ray Borg, Tim Elliott, Matthias Nicolau. And now he gets the win here. So good story for Louis Smolka, and excited to see what is next.